I'm Mike Brilla, host of the Inspired Teacher Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter, coming to you every week from Abbotsford, which is about 45 minutes east of Vancouver, British Columbia, on the west coast of Canada. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to get some fresh air by walking about my neighborhood, which is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Stolo people, the Simath First Nation and Mathwee First Nation. I consume podcast content while I walk, then reflect on this content in an unedited video, which I post on my X, formerly known as Twitter, channel every day. This podcast is the collection of the audio taken from those daily selfie videos over the course of a week, Monday to Friday. So let's jump into my listening and learning this past week. Hey PLN, it's January 21, 2025. We are already 21 days into this year, and I can't believe it's crazy. This morning, as I'm walking for Fresh Air 5, I listened to episode 181 of the EdTech Throwdown as Eric Geis and Nick Johnson bring us the AI Hub breakdown and looking at the best of these tools. They give us their recommendations, each of the top 3 AI hubs, being things like Magic School. We have Teach Teacher, something like that. You'll have to listen. And then finally, things like Teach Server. And I got to check that one out because that's a new one for me. I've used Magic School a little bit. I've used Magic AI, or School AI also, and we're going to check into that. All right, thanks for listening. Check out episode 181 at Tech Throwdown. The last thing for January 21, 2025. All right, from episode 181 of the EdTech Throwdown, the guys talk about the AI hubs. And it's exciting to hear that Magic School and these tools are incorporating other tools like Adobe Express for image generation in Magic, in school. Magic School. Okay, on a different note, I turned 16 years old as a teacher last week on the 12th of January. I didn't mention that prior in my previous episode. So I'm pretty excited that, it's another year under my belt of education and the opportunities before us. We've got our salmon tank starting up in our classroom, and we've got a Adobe Express session this afternoon that I'm going to have my students chime in with Claudio and Shell from Adobe Express. All right, talk to you. Have a great day. Bye. Hey PLN, it's January 23, 2025. This morning it's -4 Celsius, thin overhead cloud, and it's crisp, but it's actually, to me, feels warmer than it when it's +1 here because the humidity drops. All right, this morning I listened to episode 118, I think it is, of the Educational Duct Tape Podcast with Jake Miller as he continues into part 2 of a conversation with Adam Sparks as they talk about writing in the classroom in a world of AI. They talk about 4 steps. Adam has 4 steps. First one is to, hang on, I gotta go look and I'll be back in the next segment. 1 second. All right, one more thing for January 23, 2025. Okay, Jake Miller, you like it when I do this because I just continue my thoughts for a bit longer on episode 118 of Educational Duct Tape Podcast. You and Adam Sparks talk about some steps to dealing with writing in the classroom and help to have effective writing. The first one is to have clear AI policies today in your classroom about when it's acceptable and not to use artificial intelligence. Number two, have more short form writing in your classroom and have feedback right away. Students peer-to-peer feedback, etc. The tool that Adam's developed called Short Answer can help with that. Number three, writing across curriculum in different classes, have them write for reasons of being able to be more literate. Number four, teach them the effective use of AI in these different spaces. Go take a listen to this episode. Thanks.
Hey, Brian, congratulations on your 200th episode. I just wanted to give you a little shout out and say thank you. Thank you for inspiring teachers to dive into maybe areas that they're not used to exploring AI, to understanding how to get our mindset in a better frame and a better place to start the week. You've introduced me to some incredible content and incredible podcasts that I listen to on the daily. I have my scheduled podcasts and I love hearing your insights. I love that you're authentic and you tell it how it is. And as you're doing life, there's snippets of your family and friends in there. And it just reminds us that as educators, we need to live a balanced life and that we still need to keep being educated ourselves. And so congratulations, Brian, on Fresh Air at 5, 200th episode. I can't wait to continue to learn and explore education with you.
Hey everybody, it's Geis from the EdTech Throwdown podcast. Brian, just wanted to wish you a sincere congratulations on reaching yet another milestone of your podcast. 200 episodes, that is absolutely fantastic. Always impressed with the content that you produced and how honest and real it is. I love being able to drive to work, listen to your podcast, hear your reflections, and then immediately write down what episodes I want to listen to for the next week's worth of drives to school. I love how you take an episode, you highlight a couple things, you point out what parts really intrigued you, and then you provide your feedback, which allows me to kind of reflect on what I think about certain topics within education. Congratulations again. So happy for you, and I look forward to celebrating your next milestone with you. Take care.
Hearing voices on episode 201 of Fresh Air at 5. All right, last week we celebrate episode 200 of Fresh Air at 5, and I had a number of colleagues and educators and friends of the show send me their voices to include in the show. All right, at the end of that episode, I said, you're going to hear from a friend of mine, Joanne Friesen, from here in my neighborhood. She's, a good friend, family friend. We go on vacations and do all manner of things together, and she's growing in her education understanding. She's a young teacher, been teaching in education for a long time. But anyhow, she shares her voice. I didn't actually put the clip in, so I'm putting it here so we can hear her in this episode. Also, Eric Geis of the EdTech Throwdown, one of my favorite podcasts with Nick Johnson. He shares his voice, so let's listen to both of them right now. Thanks so much. One more thing for January 23, 2025. This week, if you've been paying attention to my posting, has not been as consistent. It's been report card week, etc. Lots of things going on. Our wall oven died, so we have to go get a new appliance for our home, and that's a stressful experience that I'm discovering. My wife and I are working through it. We're getting there, but anyhow. All right, on episode, I think it's 23. I don't even know. Don't even worry about it. Go to Teach Happier with Suzanne Daly and look for Level Up Gratitude as a practice for leveling up ourselves as educators. She talks about the gratitude journal. This has been a thing that people have done, a one sentence or 1 point gratitude journal every day. But then she talks about how we can have a connection with the person or the thing, the situation, by reflecting with them that I put you in my gratitude journal, and that sparks a lot of things. Listen to the episode. It's fantastic. Thanks, bye. The last thing for January 23, 2025, listening to the X Factor, Level Up Your Mental Game. I think it's episode 32. I'm having a hard time today. getting the episode numbers right. So I apologize, Brian Martin, as I'm sharing this right now. But it's about Coach Freeman's lessons about success and greatness. And he's the coach of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And I don't follow college football, but I believe they came in second in the national championship recently. And he's talking with his team in the locker room after the fact. And you know what? He told them that he loved them and was proud of them. That's significant in the face of loss. You know that we know this. Even in the face of winning, that we know this. You know, it's easier to say when you're winning. When you're losing, that's hard. Talking about selflessness and being there for each other and putting in the hard work. So what are you doing today? Go take a listen to this and do those things. Okay, bye. Hey, PLN's January 24, 2025. Just out listening to SEL in Education this morning, and with an episode Cultivating Habits of Resiliency with host of the podcast, Dr. Krista Lay out of New Jersey. And then we have Dr. Lindsay Pendergrass and Dr. Piper Lee, who are the authors of this book that they've released about a year ago, looking at what does it take to be a resilient educator? And, it's not just educators. It's about all of us out there in our various spaces that what's it take to be resilient? And Castle doesn't have resiliency as a habit of SEL specifically, but it is the culmination of, as they say, most of the SEL practices. So what are you doing for yourself? Take a listen to this episode. Fantastic. Lots of things I can do. Have a good day. One more thing for January 24, 2025. Okay, I rushed it there because I was running out of time. But the habits that it takes to get to be resilient, are things like having a growth mindset, having an optimistic outlook, having a mindset of controlling the things that we can control, and how do we face negativity. And these are, prioritization is another one. So these are like, what we would have kind of looked at as soft skills back a while ago, but are so important today as habits and mindsets for being successful in our crazy, chaotic world today. So take a listen to what Lindsay and Piper and Krista have to say on the January 22nd episode of SEL in Education. All right. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye. The last thing for January 24, 2025. It's semester's end, and we are changing over here to a different semester. There's a bit of change going on for me, but not a lot that is happening. So this morning it's minus 4 degrees Celsius. It is crisp. I can see Mars in the sky, a sliver of the moon before we hit new moon next week. And it's been a good week. I have enjoyed the week. I have done a lot of things. There's been some struggle. I blew up my chemistry course in the sense that I was changing my online course and I made some deleting errors that caused me a lot of work. Got things back, but I think, yes, that's okay. All right, make mistakes and own them quick. That's what I say. All right, have a fabulous day. Appreciate you listening. Take care. We'll see you next week for episode 202, Fresh Air at 5.
I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's like a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find some other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific episode podcast titles and episode numbers in the show notes, which are only a click or swipe away for your learning convenience. I've also started to put together a Spotify playlist of each of the episodes so that you can also take a listen to those specifically, and the link to that playlist is in the show notes. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoyed this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. You can also follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Brian Carr, BRYONCAR, or at Fresh Air at 5. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can be found on the Educational Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. I hope you have a fantastic day. Get some fresh air before the day is out and take care of yourself because you are worth it.